Picture the scene at Van Nuys's private airport in Los Angeles. It's the chilling pre-dawn hours, and a Gulfstream jet sits idling on the tarmac, its engines humming a low, steady rhythm as it prepares for a transatlantic flight to Europe. The flight crew is ready, the manifest is cleared, and the high-profile passengers are settled in. But then everything stops. Suddenly, the pilot receives a red notice on the encrypted flight manifest ordering an immediate and total halt to the departure. This isn't a weather delay or a mechanical failure. It's a constitutional intervention directed from 5,000 miles away. Just 5 minutes earlier, a directive authorized by Princess and acting in her capacity as gold stick-in-waiting and the relentless protector of the monarchy's integrity, officially froze the diplomatic passport status of Archie and Lilibet Mountbatten Windsor. The children, who once held the golden ticket of sovereign protection, have been effectively downgraded in the blink of an eye. The British Home Office database no longer flags them as protected royals, but has recategorized them as private U.S. citizens. This is not a clerical error, it is the ruthless, precise application of the 1917 mandate, recently reinforced by King Charles III's legal team, which explicitly reserves rights of title and succession only for those born of a lawful biological union. The panic inside the Montecito mansion is reportedly absolute. For years, the Sussexes relied on the ambiguity of their status to float above the rules. But the quiet removal of the children's names from the royal website was merely the warning shot. This is the strike. The discovery of a Delaware money trail, a web of payments for medical services that allegedly bypassed royal protocol, have forced the palace's hand. Prince Harry is left devastated, realizing that the diplomatic shield he thought would protect his children forever has been shattered by his own family's adherence to the law. The crown is done waiting. Stay with us, because the evidence that triggered this freeze is about to be revealed. But that wasn't the whole story, as the catalyst for this constitutional earthquake did not occur in a courtroom or a parliamentary hearing. It happened amidst the clinking of crystal glasses at a discreet, high-stakes political fundraiser in Montecito. It was early January, and the air inside the sprawling estate was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the hushed tones of Hollywood's power brokers. Meghan Markle, seated at the head of a table filled with media strategists and political donors, appeared to be in her element. She was no longer just a duchess in exile, she was holding court. However, comfort often breeds complacency, and in a moment of unguarded arrogance, she uttered 12 words that would travel faster than light back to Buckingham Palace. During an off-the-record chat, Meghan Markle reportedly leaned in and made a direct, unflattering comparison between her son and the future King of England. Archie has more spark than George, she said, her voice carrying over the lull in conversation. He was made for the spotlight. To the uninitiated, this might have passed as standard maternal pride. But to the room, full of media professionals, many of whom recorded and repeated the moment with growing alarm, it was interpreted as something far more calculated. Was, as one insider later put it, a provocation wrapped in vanity. This was not merely a mother boasting about her child, it was a direct challenge to the institution of the monarchy. By contrasting Archie's spark with Prince George's perceived reserve, Meghan Markle was implicitly questioning the suitability of the heir to the throne. It was a breach of the unspoken contract that allows the spares to live freely so long as they do not undermine the heir. The comment was relayed immediately to London, likely by a guest with diplomatic ties, triggering a red alert within the offices of the royal household. For years, the palace had maintained a diplomatic silence regarding the Sussex children, brushing off questions about christenings and birth witnesses as privacy preferences. They had adhered to a clause inserted during the Sandringham Summit, Clause 7, Paragraph 3, which effectively agreed that the sovereign would withhold scrutiny into matters of lineage in exchange for the Sussexes' withdrawal from public duties. It was a trade-off, a silent truce cloaked in discretion. But that truce shattered the moment Meghan Markle's words at the dinner party were analyzed by the king's private secretaries. The palace realized that Meghan Markle was no longer seeking privacy, she was building a rival court. The Montecito slip forced the crown's hand. If she was going to compare Archie to Prince George in the court of public opinion, the palace would be forced to compare them in the court of constitutional law. The gray suits at the palace, who had previously turned a blind eye to the irregularities surrounding Archie's birth, were ordered to reopen the files. The days of looking the other way were over, and what happened next would shock everyone. The unraveling of the Sussex narrative did not begin with a bang, but with the quiet, methodical click of a forensic accountant's keyboard. In late 2025, what was intended to be a routine audit of the sovereign grant expenditures turned into a full-scale financial investigation that would expose the deepest cracks in the Montecito facade. The audit team, operating under the strict confidentiality of the Privy Purse, stumbled upon a series of irregularities that could not be explained away as mere clerical errors or renovation overruns. They discovered a digital paper trail leading away from the damp cobblestones of Windsor and straight into the opaque corporate laws of the United States. At the center of this web was a Delaware-based entity, a shell company with a name that sounded benignly philanthropic, Sussex Global Health Initiatives. To the casual observer, it appeared to be just another arm of the couple's charitable endeavors. But when the auditors peeled back the layers of the ledger, they found a string of suspicious transactions that painted a very different picture. These were not donations to children's hospitals or grants for mental health awareness. They were specific, itemized payments for highly specialized medical services wired thousands of miles away from where the royal baby was supposedly being born. The numbers were staggering and dangerously specific. The audit exposed $95,000 classified as agency fees, a term often associated with high-end surrogacy facilitation. Following closely was a transfer of $110,000 for legal facilitation contracts, suggesting complex custodial agreements rather than standard hospital admissions. Even more damning was a $195,000 outflow for medical payments to a private U.S. facility. And perhaps the most chilling entry of all, $82,000 listed as a live birth disbursement for Candidate 6. The precision of that phrase, Candidate 6, sent shockwaves through the palace. It dehumanized the royal birth into a contractual transaction, stripping away the sanctity of the succession. The timeline of these payments coincided perfectly with the weeks leading up to Archie's birth in May 2019. This created a geographical and logical paradox that no amount of PR spin could resolve. The world had been told that Archie Harrison was born at the Portland Hospital in London, attended by British doctors. Yet, the money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, was flowing to American fertility clinics and legal firms in the months prior. Why would a member of the British royal family, with access to the finest medical care in the Commonwealth, be paying a fortune to a U.S. entity for a live birth if the child was being carried by the Duchess in England? The math simply did not add up. But the investigation revealed a betrayal that went deeper than geography. The funding for these American transactions had not come from Prince Harry's private wealth or Meghan Markle's acting residuals. The audit trail indicated that the money had been siphoned from the Frogmore Cottage renovation budget. This was public money, taxpayer funds designated by Parliament for the refurbishment of a historic state residence, allegedly diverted to finance an overseas medical arrangement. Suddenly, the palace was facing a dual crisis, a massive financial irregularity involving public funds and a constitutional catastrophe regarding the legitimacy of the line of succession. The Delaware money trail was no longer just a theory, it was documented, itemized, and undeniable proof that the official story of Archie's birth was, at best, a fabrication and, at worst, a fraud against the crown. But the legal repercussions were just getting started. The crown does not act on emotion, it acts on precedent. But the tabloids focused on family feuds and leaked text messages. The machinery of the British monarchy was quietly, ruthlessly turning the gears of constitutional law. The revelation of the Delaware money trail did not result in a public screaming match. Instead, it triggered the revival and rigid enforcement of a century-old legal framework, King George V's 1917 letters patent, now weaponized by a modern amendment that would seal the fate of the Sussex children forever. For years, the public believed that titles were a gift from the Queen, a grandmother's token of affection. But as royal historians and constitutional experts note, succession is governed by the Act of Settlement of 1701 and subsequent letters patent, which strictly define the conditions by which heirs may stand in the line of kingship. The central pillar of this legitimacy is the requirement that a potential heir be born of the body of a lawful wife of a sovereign or his direct descendants. This archaic but essential phrase is the firewall that protects the bloodline from fraud, substitution, or external manipulation. The discovery of the surrogacy payments and the candidate's 6 designation in the Delaware audit effectively placed Archie and Lilibet outside this firewall. King Charles III, often portrayed as a sentimental father, proved himself to be a decisive monarch, with the backing of Princess and the legal counsel of the Privy Council. A legal team was tasked with drafting a letters patent amendment to close the loophole the Sussexes had exploited. This amendment was finalized and signed on the 18th of January 2026. Its central clause was simple, yet seismic. Succession and the rights of title shall be reserved for individuals born of the lawful biological union of a royal descendant and their recognized spouse. The phrase lawful biological union was deliberately unambiguous. It was a legal scalpel designed to excise any ambiguity regarding surrogacy or assisted reproduction involving third-party donors. It rendered Meghan Markle's children ineligible for their places in the line of succession, retroactively and irrevocably. The implications were immediate. Prince Harry, realizing the diplomatic shield was disintegrating, made a desperate solo dash back to the United Kingdom. Witnesses reported seeing the Duke of Sussex arriving at Heathrow alone, looking less like a royal and more like a man on the run from his own reality. Rumors swirled that he had returned to beg his father for a special dispensation, a waiver, that would allow his children to retain their status despite the evidence. But the king was not available. Instead, Prince Harry was met by the steel wall of the monarchy, Princess Anne. Multiple sources confirmed that he met privately with the Princess Royal at Gatcombe Park. For less than an hour. The meeting was described as icy. Prince Harry allegedly pleaded that his children were being punished for the modern choices of their parents. Princess Anne's response was reportedly devastating in its cold logic. She informed him that the monarchy is not a family business that can bend rules for favored sons. It is a state institution bound by parliamentary law. When asked later if a reconciliation was possible, Princess Anne replied with a phrase that would trend across social media for 3 days: "One cannot reconcile with tactics." Prince Harry left the meeting empty-handed. He realized then that the 1917 mandate was not just a historical document, it was an active cage. The amendment meant that while Archie and Lilibet might technically retain the style of prince and princess as a courtesy under the 1917 decree, they were stripped of all patronages, public funding, and ceremonial standing. More importantly, without the constitutional status of heirs of the body, their diplomatic immunity was void. The passport freeze was not a punishment, it was a bureaucratic inevitability. The king had not acted out of malice. He had simply allowed the law to take its course, leaving Prince Harry to explain to his wife why their children were now, in the eyes of the crown, merely American citizens with distinguished names. But Montecito wasn't ready to go quietly into the night. If the legal freezing of passports and the exposure of the Delaware money trail were the hammer blows from London, what happened next was the desperate, flailing retaliation from Montecito. Facing a financial squeeze and a rapidly closing window of relevance, the Sussex camp pivoted from defensive maneuvering to an all-out commercial insurgency. Just weeks after the 1917 mandate effectively locked her children out of the line of succession, sharp-eyed royal watchers noticed a quiet filing in the California State Trademark Registry. A new label, Royal Reclamation, was registered under a holding company tied to Archwell Enterprises. The name itself was a declaration of war, but the product descriptions were nothing short of a provocation. The catalog included children's loungewear, family crests, and storybooks about lost birthrights. But the item that caused jaws to drop within the palace walls was a toddler t-shirt printed with the slogan, "Future Monarch, just not yours." It was petty, it was provocative, and it was undeniably Meghan Markle. The marketing campaign launched with a 3-minute teaser video aired exclusively on Meghan Markle's Instagram. It opened with soft cinematic footage of young Archie running through a sun-drenched California orchard, cut sharply against vintage, digitally faded footage of Queen Elizabeth II's coronation. The voiceover delivered a chilling message: royal blood doesn't fade, it fights back. Inside Buckingham Palace, the mood shifted from concern to calm fury. Prince William reportedly instructed advisors to prepare a silent legal response, prioritizing the protection of the crown symbols over a public media row. However, it was Princess Catherine who identified the most disturbing detail in the lineup. The Royal Reclamation Catalogue featured a children's picture book that thinly veiled a comparison between Archie and Prince George. The illustrations depicted a dark-haired boy standing in shadows, while a blonde boy received a crown from older royals. The narrative implied betrayal, exclusion, and royal theft, portraying the Little Lionheart title as being stolen from its rightful owner. For Princess Catherine, a mother fiercely protective of her children's privacy and destiny, this weaponization of Prince George's image crossed a sacred line. But the true disaster, the moment the brand turned from controversial to toxic, occurred during a livestream event intended to legitimize the venture. In a final attempt to pivot the narrative and generate liquid capital, Meghan Markle hosted a charity auction titled "A Future for Archie and Lilibet." She appeared in a flowing white dress seated beside a mahogany table showcasing what were billed as royal heirlooms and baby memorabilia. The atmosphere was awkward, the engagement forced. Then came the item that broke the internet. Viewers noticed that one of the tiaras up for auction bore a striking resemblance to the miniature coronet given to Princess Charlotte during her first state banquet. Internet sleuths immediately began comparing photos, and accusations flew in the chat. Was this a replica? Was it a stolen gift? Or was she deliberately blurring the lines to suggest a continuity that didn't exist? The implication that she was selling off the family jewels, literal or figurative, was catastrophic. The stream was cut short after just 32 minutes. No public donations were reported, and the silence from the auction floor was deafening. But the final nail in the coffin came from London. In a move orchestrated by Princess Anne's office, the Royal Press Office issued a rare late-night statement clarifying that no royal memorabilia had been gifted, sold, or auctioned by the royal household to private parties. It was a polite way of calling the auction a fraud. Simultaneously, Princess Anne personally oversaw the dispatch of cease and desist notices to vendors associated with the brand. The palace's Legal Protection Office had compiled a 73-page dossier outlining trademark misuse, including the unauthorized use of King George VI's coat of arms. Royal reclamation had failed, not because of censorship, but because it exposed the hollowness of the Sussex strategy. They were trying to sell a legacy they had voluntarily abandoned, and the world was no longer buying. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more intense, the silent enforcer stepped in. While the chaotic energy of the royal reclamation failure was still reverberating through the American tabloids, a very different kind of power was being demonstrated across the Atlantic. The contrast could not have been more stark. On one side of the ocean, there was noise, merchandise, and a desperate clamor for relevance. On the other, there was silence, but it was a silence so heavy with meaning that it drowned out every slogan Meghan Markle tried to print on a t-shirt. The countermove did not come from a lawyer or a press secretary. It came from the Princess of Wales, Princess Catherine, who stepped into the role of the silent enforcer with a grace that was as ruthless as it was regal. The setting was St. Thomas' Hospital in London, a stark departure from the glitzy auction. Blocked by palace lawyers. There was no entourage, no press release, and no prearranged fanfare. Princess Catherine simply appeared, ostensibly to visit a children's ward. But for those who understand the visual language of the monarchy, her attire was a deafening shout. Pinned securely to her coat was Queen Elizabeth II's Jubilee Star brooch, a rarely seen heirloom encrusted with diamonds. This was not a random fashion choice. In the lexicon of royal jewelry, this specific piece is reserved strictly for monarchs or their direct successors. By wearing it, Princess Catherine was doing what the late Queen was famous for, letting the details speak. The placement of the jewel was deliberate, pinned beside a dark navy sash representing the Royal Victorian Order, signifying not just honor but hereditary trust. Lady Vera Montague, a former royal dresser, noted the significance immediately. She didn't need to say anything. That brooch said it all. George is the heir. The message was a direct, piercing arrow aimed at Meghan Markle's future monarch marketing campaign. While Meghan Markle was trying to sell the idea of a stolen birthright on toddler clothing, Princess Catherine was wearing the physical embodiment of the succession. She was reminding the world that the crown is not a brand to be reclaimed, it is a burden to be inherited. The public picked up on the symbolism instantly. Across social media platforms, the hashtag #ChosenHeir began to trend, eclipsing the Sussexes' own campaign tags within 48 hours. But the silent enforcer did not stop at symbolism. That same week, excerpts from a private interview with respected royal chronicler Eloise Moran were published in the Sunday Times under the headline, "The Making of a Future Queen." Buried in the third column was a quote from Princess Catherine that struck at the very heart of the Sussex narrative. "Every child deserves love," she said, "but not every child is destined to lead." Continued in a tone described by aides as ice-cold, regal detachment, stating that the path to the throne is not granted by emotion or drama, but is carved by service. The optical defeat of the Sussexes was cemented by a single candid moment captured during the hospital visit. Cameras caught Princess Catherine crouching beside a 6-year-old cancer patient, gently adjusting the boy's toy crown. She whispered something that made him smile, displaying a natural, unforced maternal instinct that stood in brutal contrast to accusations of a cold monarchy. The impact was immediate. For the first time in weeks, Meghan Markle was no longer the main story, Princess Catherine was. The imagery of the Princess of Wales wearing the Queen's brooch and tending to a sick child reinforced a simple, devastating truth. One mother was speaking of exclusion and selling merchandise, while the other was demonstrating succession in motion. Princess Catherine had drawn a line in the sand without raising her voice. She had protected her son, Prince George, not by engaging in a mudslinging contest, but by elevating the standard of what it means to be royal. The message to Montecito was clear. You can print all the t-shirts you want, but you cannot manufacture majesty. And that led to the final chilling revelation.